All right, welcome folks. Welcome to the webinar on unusual options. I am your host, Ryan Fluna, and I am here with Big Beat. And today we are going to have our webinar on unusual options, how to find them, what they are, why they're important, and how Pro can help you with that. So, Steve, I got to say, I'm really excited about this. I know one of your lessons is options aren't scary. So, really glad that you're here to take us through this. Why don't you get us kicked off here? I'm going to go ahead and get Pro loaded here.
All right, Ryan. Well, thanks for having me today. As you know, actually, that is one of my rules, that options aren't scary. Quite frankly, I'll be honest with you, there was a time when options were scary to me. I had no idea what they were about. I didn't understand them, and I thought it was like living on a different planet. Yeah, I grew up in the stock market. Yeah, I grew up in the biotech world. Yeah, I grew up in all that fun stuff. But I really wanted to learn options. I thought it was the place to figure out and understand what was going on. I grew up in the commodities markets. I understood the futures markets quite well. I grew up in the ag markets as well, learning bonds and futures of the markets in regards to the stock markets, the indices, right, as well as ags like wheat and corn and pigs and hogs. And I learned how to trade those things. And what I was told very early was, well, Steve, if you can learn futures markets, you can definitely learn the options markets. It's no different. And I didn't quite understand what they meant by that. So I had a guy take me under his wing. Sure as heck, he showed me, and it's exactly what it is. Options are a way to lever your positions. It's also a way to hedge your positions. So what do I mean by that? Well, whenever you're playing the options market, you're looking for a few things. You're looking for time, and you're also looking for a price. So what you're doing is you're deciding in the future what you think the price is going to be on that equity. So let's say you're looking at a stock and you're looking to go long that stock. Well, you'll buy a call. If you're looking to short that stock, you will buy a put. Now that's kind of the basics there. And also that options, one option is 100 shares. So you're able to lever up without having to go on margin, without having to do all the other things that you normally do to gain that levered up position. So one of the things that we look for in the markets, Ryan, is we look for unusual options. And those are options where a play is so out of the norm that we really need to find those, and we want to play along with that person or that position. Now, it could be a hedge, and I said that earlier. So a hedge may say you may own a lot of its shares or have a big position in a stock, but you may want to buy a put against it. So the puts are hoping it'll go down, right? So if it goes down, you pick money up on the puts and maybe able to buy more shares if you want to go longer term, right? So it's also can be protection as well, or as I call it, options are also insurance. All right.
Now,
Brian,
Steve, I got a real quick question here. Do you actually need to trade options to benefit from this info, or can you benefit from this info strictly being an equity trader, common stock trader?
You know, what's interesting, Ryan, is that I watch the options market not just to play the market, but also to get sentiment. And that's very important on a stock. If I'm seeing large call orders on a stock, especially from insiders, I will look for that to be a good sentiment indicator for a long position. Now, I may not play that certain stock. I may play another one in that sector, right? We also want to look at ETFs options as well, the SPY or the XLI, anything that gives us direction of the markets. And so I also look for that as well. And one of the places that you can find this kind of stuff, Ryan, is within Benzinga Pro. And if you want, let's open up a couple of things within the workspace here. Ryan, let's open up a Signals, which is one of my favorite widgets.
Mine as well.
Yeah. And let's open up the option activity one. We can take this price spike off. This is just so we can see it here. And as well, I'd like to open up a news feed as well, Ryan. And we'll show you how to also look there as well for the plays as well that I like to see. All right, Ryan. Well, a lot of times when you see these options, may not understand this line here. And right now, I'm going to take the opportunity and explain the line to you. Now, what do I mean by that? So the last one you see is the XLE, and that's obviously the energy one. Now I'm going to play along with you guys, so I'm going to actually look to my left where my screen is so that I can see the option line too. If you'll notice here, it's December 20, 60 calls. All right, that's a sweep. Now that sweep means it's a very large order. It's not a normal order. As we said, it's an unusual order, so we're looking for that. So a call sweep near the bid. Well, now when it says calls near the bid, right, that's bearish, right? So they're selling calls. You can buy a call. You can also sell a call. You can buy a put and sell a put. And just like they said, selling a call would be bearish. So right here, they're kind of bearish in the energy sector. And it's showing that there were 1,000 options. Now that's 100. It's 1,000 options times 100, right? But if you look, the price is $1.20. That's the price of what they paid for this option. Now the next number there, Ryan, is 23,662. Now you see the little symbols next to it says OI. Well, that's open interest. That's all the volume that's around it. Those are where every other position is trying to create a bid or an ask. They're trying to buy or sell in there as well, but they're not been lifted, as we say. All right. And the next order, the number there is reference number, and that's 59.97. That is the price of the actual equity when they placed this option order.
Okay, so just to recap here, basically what this is doing, this is giving you the ticker in the symbol column, and then in the description, it's telling you exactly what happened. So it's telling you what got bought, and then what expiration it got bought. I noticed that you said the December 2060 calls, and I just wanted to slow that down and explain. What you're referring to is the call that expires on December 20th at the $60 strike price. So
right.
So what we're doing here is we're actually giving you all of the information about the particular contract that traded. And I'm really glad that you mentioned that the option, one option is worth 100 shares, because that $1.20 is actually multiplied by 100 when you're actually trying to purchase that option. So so that's great. And then we also have a chart that you developed to help explain these things. Is that correct?
That is correct, Ryan. And if you don't mind, could you probably put that into the chat so that everybody else can see that as well, so that when people are actually watching these unusual options coming through, that they'll know what it is, and then they're not just buying calls to buy calls or buying puts to buy puts.
Sure.
They'll know the direction of which they're going. Now, I'm going to read it off to you so that you'll all understand. But calls at the ask are bearish. That means they're selling calls. Calls at the bid, obviously, is bearish. Puts at the ask, selling puts, so it would be a bearish situation. And puts at the bid is very bullish because they're selling puts.
Okay, so real quick, just to recap, I went ahead and I posted the complete chart in the chat. You can copy it and paste it and save it. If you lose it, you can always reach out to me. I would be happy to give you a copy of this. I'm sure Big Beat would be happy to pass a copy of this along as well.
Absolutely.
As I mentioned, I put it in the chat. Also, feel free to ask any questions that you have in the chat. Just throw them in there. Even if we don't answer them right away, we will try to hit all of those at the end of the webinar and hopefully get all of your questions answered. Remember, options aren't scary, and this tool can be very valuable even if you're not trading options. So I see we already got a question here. I don't see the chart. I called it a chart. It's just several lines of information. I went ahead and pasted it. If you can't get it, don't worry. I will make sure that I get it emailed out to you at the end. So Steve, just one more time, go ahead and cover what exactly a sweep is, the word sweep, because I know from when I deal with people a lot, they are often kind of confused as to what that means. So can you break that down a little bit more for us?
Well, I can tell you that I have an aversion to cleaning house, so I do not sweep my house. I do not vacuum it, but I do like the word sweep when it comes to options. And so for me, let me tell you exactly what a sweep is. So when a very large order comes in, let's say it's a fund or a Warren Buffett type comes in, or it can be you and me type, come in with a very large order that is not a normal order. It takes a lot of avenues, shall we say, routes to fill that order. So if I'm buying too many calls that the actual person on the floor can't handle, they'll break up that order. And so what I'm looking for is that number that's in the parentheses, Ryan, especially if it's a large stock price and a large number. Now, a large number would be 25 to 50 and over 50. I've seen a lot of SPY calls today that were over 100. Those are very large orders that are being broken up. And so I'm looking for big numbers in there, and that means the number of routes of which that order had to be broken up in order to be filled.
Okay, awesome. And that definitely plays into why it is, in fact, an unusual order. So I heard you just mentioned SPY. Do you have any other examples? Do we have anything else to explain or set up here with the setup so that we can cover anything like that? What's the next step here, Steve?
Great community in our chat room. And you know, one of the cool things about that is we're always looking for different positions in order to play. And in the last week, if you're actually a Benzinga Pro member, we have a Benzinga Pro Insider room on Facebook, and I've been laying some in there as well. When those unusual options come in that are so crazy, I see them. I've been laying them in there as well. So one of them that we laid in not too long ago was Juniper Networks. That was JNPR. There was some heavy call buying we saw, and it was bam, bam, bam coming in. And when we did that, we laid it out to the users, said, hey, look at these big option plays come in. Obviously, Juniper Networks jumped. Everybody got out, got the price, and killed it. Another one was last week with Intelsat. We bought some puts on those because we saw some news come in. Charlie was telling us about Intelsat's ticker I, letting us know that they were going up. Ajit Pai was going to put up the airwaves for auction, and when that happened, it killed Intelsat, and we all crushed that. But we saw those auction plays coming in early, and that's what's important, is that when people ask me, I want to make a play before a stock moves, that's exactly what happens. I mean, it's like going to a casino, and these big boys are putting some big bets down, and we want to know where those bets are, and when they put those bets in, I want to be right there with them. Another one that happened here was Pfizer, PFE. We got a really good comment from some clients how we had laid the Pfizer deal out there from call buying. Centene last week, CNC, killed that one. Absolutely did quite well with that one. And then the last one here with Charlie squawking it with KZIA.
Okay, awesome. And so so that's great. I want to take a step back here and discuss strategy a little bit as we talk about how these are important, because I think it's very important to remember that what we're trying to do here is we're trying to increase our odds. We're trying to extract data from things that have happened in the market to try and better our odds of finding something that may do or may behave predictably. And so when you're talking about institutions or large traders that are putting a lot of money behind a particular trade, generally they don't do that haphazardly. They do that for a specific reason. And if you can follow that, you can kind of perhaps give yourself a better chance. Now, as everything in the market, nothing is 100%. So these are, certainly not going to guarantee anything. That's not it at all.
That's true, Ryan. But the one thing about options are these are real plays. These are real orders going through the market. So, yeah.
Now, so here, just looking at our screen here, we've got a whole bunch of option signals in the signals tool on the left. And then on the right, we have a fairly basic news feed. But I am seeing, like right down here at Clovis Oncology, there's a option sweep in there. So what else do we have to do to the news feed in order to set this up specifically for options?
Well, Ryan, I do this all the time with my news feed, and I will tell you exactly how to set up an option sweep. Now, this is very simple. If you go to the top where it says sources, Ryan, we want to make sure that we have two sources checked. That's Benzinga Signals and Benzinga Wire. Now, Ryan, you know me quite well. You know that I also change the colors of my news feed sources so they can see them. And of course, with Benzinga Signals, I turn it blue, and with Benzinga Wire, I turn it purple.
Okay, well, I of course mixed that up because I obviously don't know you as well as I thought there, Steve. So I went ahead and fixed that here for you. Really quickly, I just want to cover this for the viewers. This can be very helpful in terms of making things easier to see at a glance. That's why Steve does this. So I've gone ahead here and I selected each source as he mentioned, and then I used the color slider in the panel to the right in order to color code that. Now that I've got these set up correctly, instead of backwards, I'm going to go ahead and press done. And if you look at the newsfeed, you can see here that what you've got are the two different sources color-coded so that it may be easier for you to see. So, Steve, I've got those two sources set up. What's next?
All right, so we wanted to narrow it down with some keywords, Ryan. The two keywords that I like to use, the first word is option, OPTION.
And really quickly, I just want to interrupt here. I want to make sure that you're selecting keyword. In the case of option, there's obviously no ticker option, but we want to ensure that we're doing a keyword search here. So I'm just going to click on that. Steve, what's next?
And the second word there is sweep, S-W-E-E-P.
Okay, I'm going to do the same thing for the keyword there. So
Ryan, in that news feed, when you look back, you saw Clovis Oncology, right? But
yes,
here,
sir.
it's right there at the top for you. You no longer have to go searching through. They're all right there in front of you.
Yes, sir. So just looking at this, it looks like the difference between the news feed and the signals is that the news feed has S&P 500 companies in it, whereas signals is giving you a more robust output. It's giving you everything else, including those ETFs that you mentioned. So it looks like here that the Spider Energy Fund here, the XLE sweep that you briefly talked about, that is, you could deduce that something's happening to the energy sector because of that.
Absolutely.
So,
and I always encourage people to go to signals first because it is the fastest. It is a signal. It's quick. The news feed is the news feed. Now, one of the reasons that we changed it to different colors is that if it's in purple, there's probably some news that's actually behind it, or we posted it somewhere here at Benzinga. That's the Benzinga wire that's coming through. And so sometimes there's either news behind it, or we have squawked it, or somehow have made it available to the clients out there. So we want to make sure that everybody they understand that purple is a little bit different. Now, if you look to the left between the actual symbol, Ryan, and the actual sweep line, you'll see a little carrot there. Do you see a little carrot, a little green carrot?
yes, sir, I sure do. I've got my mouse pointed right at it.
You want to explain that to people?
Right. So what this is, that's a great little tip there. And this is actually why you want to have this dual setup with the newsfeed and the signals tool. What that little carrot is a sentiment indicator. And a sentiment indicator is something that is assigned by our news desk saying that this particular post has a either positive or negative sentiment. Now the scale for the sentiment indicator is 3 down carrots to 3 up carrots, and then everything in between. So 3 down, 2 down, 1 down, no carrot, and then 1 up, 2 up, and 3 up. In this case, we've got 1 green or up carrot. So the news desk is telling you that, hey, this sweep could have an impact on the price of this equity. And it's just one more data point for you to collect for you to help make your decision. So, and real quick, Steve, I just want to, I got 2 really good questions here. One was the what does the 22 mean? And that he's referring to the XLE example that we talked about earlier. I'll take that one real quick here. So the 22, that refers to the number of routes that the large order was broken up into. So, so as Steve had mentioned, in that particular example, there were 1,000 contracts that needed to get purchased in order to fill that order. And the only way that they could do that to fill that order was to break it up into 22 different routes. So Steve, did you have any more color on whether that's bullish or bearish or how you can interpret that?
So let's look at the XLE. You know, one of the things, Ryan, that we can do within the news feed here, option sweep, is that we can narrow it down. So the 2 things that I want to use to narrow it down, Ryan, is I would like to be able to narrow it down by either watch lists or narrow it down by a company that we see quite a few options going through. Ryan, I thought I saw a lot of Apple options, so I'm going to explain it, these lines to them once again. But if you type in the AAPL right next to option sweep, and now if you put in the, there you go.
In this case, we're going to select the symbol, and here you go.
So Ryan, you see that there aren't just one major unusual option on Apple. There are quite a few, and so we can see direction. And I think that's what a lot of people are asking right now is, how do I know if it's bullish or bearish? And I think we just gave you the chart, right? But I'm looking at all of the Apple options that just came in, and you can see 6, 6, 11, 51, 121, 49. That should tell you just about everything you want to know, that these people right here, it looks like the put below the bid. There you go. We see put sweeps near the bid. So we already talked about that, right, Brian? You want to explain that one to them?
Yeah, so per the chart, and this is probably the most confusing thing, and this is why I'm really glad that you actually developed that chart and why I want to be able to distribute that to anybody that needs a copy of it. This can actually be confusing. So when you have a situation like this Apple trade where it's puts near the bid, that is in fact a bullish indication. Is that correct, Steve?
That's correct.
And why is that? Why is it like that? Because that might not necessarily be
Because they're selling puts. They're
because you're selling puts. So the way I always say when I'm trying to explain this to other people, I always say, let's start off with the call side, because that's just a little bit more easy to understand. So when you have calls go off at the ask, or near the ask, or above the ask, depending on whatever the post says, someone is trying to buy calls, meaning that they want to have a long position, and they're doing it near the ask. So they're not waiting for their order to be filled at the bid. Instead, they're saying, you know what? No, go out and fill this order. If I have to pay a little bit more, that's okay, because I want in. And that's how you're deducing this. So if you were to flip that around and it was going to be calls at the bid, then that's a bearish indication, because the sales that's happening at the bid, they're not saying go out and pay more. It's someone else saying, I need to get out of this position. I need to hit bids to liquidate my position. And that is a bearish. Now with puts, you obviously flip that around, because a put is a tool to expose you to downside movement as opposed to upside movement. So I'm really glad that we pushed that chart out there. I'm really glad that we're able to cover this example using a put sweep. That's great. I think I did have one more question in here that was related that I wanted to touch on real quick, Steve.
Okay.
So we're saying, is there, great question here. I'll take this one too. Is there a way to customize the filter so that I can scan for unusual flow at or above the ask for calls or puts? Great question. Unfortunately, we do not have any way to filter these other than what we're showing you today, but we are absolutely hoping to expand this in the future. So if you also have things like that request, if you have other questions, if you have other needs and desires, please reach out to me. We definitely want to hear about what the customers are looking for so that we can give you better tools throughout the trading day. So I see Steve Gillette here asked, sweep near the ask is bearish, right? And well, it depends, Steve. Is that a calls at the ask, or is that a put sweep at the ask? Because the calls at the ask would be bullish, whereas the puts at the ask would be bearish. Right. So it really depends on all of that, and that's why we want to have, so I meant calls. So a call sweep near the ask is in fact a bullish indication. So sorry to digress a little bit there, Steve, okay. But I do want to reinforce.
Awesome. I love all these questions. It's great.
Yeah, me too.
I love it. Second thing I want to show people now, if we wipe off the Apple, the AAPL, I can show them how to get rid of that one stock symbol.
All right. So this is a really good point too. If you have multiple keywords or stocks in your search bar in your newsfeed, as soon as you put your cursor in the newsfeed, you can use the arrow keys on your keyboard to switch between those different keywords and then simply hit your delete key. So I went back to right in front of Apple, I hit my delete key, it deleted Apple and left the option and the sweep keyword in the field. So what's next here, Steve?
Now, Ryan, a lot of our traders also only trade sectors now. Most of you know I'm a huge biotech trader. I love the biotech sector. So one of the things that we can also filter down the news feed and as well filter down the signals is by our watch lists, right? We can filter down the signals by a sector, and we can filter down the news feed by watch lists. So Ryan, if you want to show the signal side first, let's show them how to add a filter to the signals.
Great idea. So right over here on the left-hand side, you can see at the top where I select all of my different signals, I have another option here for filters. And when I click on that and click on add a filter, now it's giving me the choice of the different filters that we have. Now, as Steve mentioned, we have both watch lists and sector as a filter. So Steve, did you want me to do this by a watch list or a sector, or should I do one as a sector and the other as a watch list?
Let's do the signals, and let's do that one by a sector.
You got it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select sector under the asset classification section. All right. And then I'm going to close the filter menu because that's the only filter that I want to add to it. Now you'll see here that I've got a sector field at the top. So this is now saying which sector would you like to filter by. So I'm going to go ahead and click this. It's a drop down menu and we can go ahead and select any sector. Which sector did you want to do, Steve?
I'm a biotech trader, so let's go do healthcare.
Not even sure why I asked you that. I should have just known. So here we go. We'll go ahead and put the healthcare sector in there. It will take a second to filter those out, and the results will be just option sweeps. Again, remember, the only signal that I had selected for this particular tool was option activity. And so the result of this is going to be only option activities in the healthcare sector. Steve, it looks like that's taken a little bit.
And on the newsfeed side, Ryan, let's go ahead and let's do a watch list. Now, Ryan, if you'll show them also, we did watch lists. I have built 41 watch lists for our clients, so they don't have to go out there and recreate the wheel. Let's show them, Ryan, how to add a watch list into their system.
Okay, so real good call here. Let me quickly show you how to do that. As Steve mentioned, he created all of these for you. You can use them. You can use them as starting off points. You can edit them. So what you want to do is you actually want to click on the help in the upper right corner. This will load up a window that has a link to the help site. We're going to click on visit help site. That will open up our help site in a new tab. And actually, once the help site loads, if you scroll down to the bottom, Big Beat's watch list. Big Beat looks like we got 42 now. So we're actually
42, that's right. Built 2 more today. That's right.
So I'm going to click on Big Beat's watch list here. You can see that we've got them all sorted here for you. And if you wanted any of these, let me actually go ahead and scroll down. So here's the biotech watch list that you were just referring to. If I click on this, it will open up the document with that. Oh, I actually have to click on it first. It will go ahead and open up that. You can see a picture of the watch list, and if you click on either the link or the picture itself, it will download the watch list in a CSV file that you can then import into Pro. So to import it into Pro, it's very simple. Whatever spreadsheet tool you're using, whether it be Excel, OpenOffice, LibreOffice, CSV should work in all of those. As soon as you open them, all you have to do is copy all of the tickers in that particular list. No, man, this biotech one is huge, Steve. 300.
Yeah, so if we open to the biotech calendar one, I think it's a lot smaller one. I pulled down the calendar from the biotech of all the cool biotechs that are coming up in front of the FDA very soon. So we already have that, I think, loaded, Ryan. If you want to go ahead and add that one into your newsfeed watch list, I think we should be good to go.
Absolutely. So right here, I just wanted to draw your attention. It did load up all of those healthcare sectors that we put that filter on. It did take a quick second, but it went ahead and loaded them all
and
up.
Once again, there's Clovis Oncology. You can see how Benzinga Pro is very sharp in the fact that it pulls those certain stocks in front of you, keep those in your eyes and right in front of you, so you don't have to go searching for them all the time.
Absolutely.
Looking for that needle in the haystack, shall we say.
Now, let me just really quickly finish off the watch list tutorial. Again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the watch list tool. The reason is because I don't already have this watch list created. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the plus button. We're going to name it Biotech. Steve, I actually already had the Biotech calendar watch list loaded, so I am going to go ahead with the Biotech one. And now, because I've copied all of the tickers to my clipboard, all I have to do is put my cursor in the search field at the top, press Control-V, and you will see all of those tickers are loaded in there and now highlighted. Here's the key. Excuse me, once they're in the search field at the top, you have to press your Enter key again. And based on the size of this watch list or the number of tickers that you have will depend on how long it actually takes to populate this watch list. So again, the biotech one that you created was 350 plus. We went ahead and copied those all, pasted them all in, pressed Enter, and here it took them. You see them all removed from the actual search line at the top, but it's taking several seconds to actually populate this into the watch list itself. So you definitely want to have some patience and wait that out when you're creating them. Once they're created, this is generally not an issue. This is not something that you're going to have to deal with. But when it comes to creating them, you're going to have to actually wait until it populates here. So for the sake of the video, I'm actually going to go ahead and select the other biotech watch list that we have. You'll see here I did the exact same thing. These are all of those different biotech names that we had loaded in there. Once we're sure that the watch list has actually been created, as Steve was saying, you can go ahead and use the watch list filter at the top of the newsfeed. So I'm going to go ahead and click on watch list. All right. Now it's got all of the different watch lists that I have created. I'm going to select Biotech Calendar. That's the one Steve wanted me to use in the first place. So I'm going to check that and then hit done. And now what you have here is a news feed that's doing multiple levels of filtering. Okay. It's only showing you signals and wire posts that have option and sweep in the post. And it's only showing you those posts that apply to the stocks that you have in your selected watch list. So, Steve, I know that you had mentioned at the beginning of this webinar that Pfizer was one of your examples, and lo and behold, I'm following your example here, and boom, that's the one at the top.
And there they are. Yeah, we don't make up stuff here. We actually just we put it right in front of people. You know, I think we talked about Clovis Oncology, Pfizer, Gilead. They're all there, right? We don't have to go looking for them all the time. The software, as long as we get the keywords right, and as long as we have the watch list correct, and we're here to help them, right, Ryan, to help them show how to do this stuff, you'll find these things in here, no problem.
Absolutely, and we love helping, and we love hearing success stories. I can't tell you how many times in Pro Chat, part of our community, where someone says, "Thanks, Benzinga, this really helped me in this trade. That you really clued me into something. I was able to do this," and we love hearing that. So I'm really glad that we make the help videos and we cover all this stuff, because it really is great. So Steve, now that we have this here, what's the next step here? What are we doing?
All right. Well, are there any other questions coming in about the options world here?
Yeah, so I did actually have a question that was not directly about options, but it is something that we will briefly mention. We have a gentleman that's asking about if we have plans for a mobile pro platform in the future, and if so, how far out? So I know we wanted to talk about Stock Clock. I'll just turn this over to you here.
All right. Well, I'm pulling it up right now. That is correct. We actually are. We are looking at building a mobile app, and quite frankly, it is built. We are testing it now, but it is called Stock Clock. I'm going to show it to you right now, Ryan. Can you see that?
Yeah, let me pause the. Let me figure out this share here. Let me stop this share for. There we go. So now I see your video, and it's much bigger. So that is our app. So tell us about it, Steve.
So Stock Clock is a really cool app that's going to allow you on your mobile phone to create your watch list. It's going to allow you to create a screener. You're looking for those kind of screeners that we have within Pro. You'll be able to screen it from your mobile phone. Obviously, all of Benzinga News, Reuters, all the news that you're comfortable with at Benzinga Pro here will also be on your phone as well. And you'll have alerts as well. And of course, my favorite is watch lists. I like creating watch lists so that I can easily see what's going on, what level, is the gold market up, stock market's gonna be down, right? I want to be able to see those very quickly, and Stock Clock's gonna be there for you. I'm excited about Stock Clock.
I am too, and this is only the first iteration, so I just want to say that if you have other things that you want to see in the app that we don't have, please let us know. That's how we're going to prioritize adding those things. We obviously want to do it in segments so we don't release something that just either doesn't work or is too overwhelming for the user to use. We want to do it in segments, and we want to make sure that what we put out there is valuable to you and that you can.
You know what's interesting, Ryan? They're already available on Google Play as well as the Apple App Store. So all you got to do is do a search for Stock Clock.
And actually, one of our viewers has already downloaded it. So way to go, Steve. Way to go. So let me go ahead here and share up the Pro platform again. We'll return back to the options thing. Great question. Thank you for asking these questions, by the way. Sorry if we're jumping around. So Steve, back here at the options sweep, what are we doing next?
Well, Ryan, for me, I'm always looking for direction in the market, and so that's what I have been looking for. Now, I'm going to switch over, and we're going to talk about the new thing. Ryan, do you want to move over to what the sector calls have been lately?
Yeah, so that's I was hoping that you were going to mention that, because in the last webinar, your sector call was holiday retailers, and you said that the retail numbers were not so good, but that's when we pick up the shares, right? Because we want to buy low and sell high. So, Steve, you called the the holiday retail sector, and you also called the biotech sector, which we talked about a little bit here. They're both hot. So talk about that. Talk about the call for us.
So once again, to reiterate back, I said that the retail sector was not going to be very good. The numbers were going to be mixed to negative. But I thought that we'd pull out a few nuggets out of that. And one of the nuggets I said was that I do expect big box retailers to do quite well. Walmart with Sam's Club, Costco, COST with being a big box retailer. I said that's going to be really good. Now, what I said was I don't think that the rest of the retailers are going to do quite well. And so far, they've been pretty bad. The numbers have not been good. Macy's, in particular, there, Ticker M, and a few others. But when do you buy, Ryan?
You buy it when it's low.
Right. And so I've said that the next sector that I've called is the retail sector. And I said the holidays numbers will be very good going into Q1. And the one thing that I've been saying constantly is if you check your Gmail, go to your promotions tab, see, are they showing you 70, 80% off? I'm not seeing that, right? I had a sneak peek at the Best Buy, BBY. I saw their Black Friday ads, and I was not that impressed. And as you know, I've got quite a few TVs around my offices, so I buy TVs a lot.
Amongst other gadgets as well. So that says quite a bit, actually. That says quite a bit. Now, so, one of the other things that I wanted to mention, I wanted to kind of put two and two together here. So you had just said that the retailers going into Q1, here we are, we're approaching Thanksgiving, we're in late Q4 here. If we're going to put two and two together, since we're talking about option paper and following the smart money, what if, from a strategy perspective, what if we start to see Costco or Macy's or other retail stores that have large option paper? Is that something that you can actually put two and two together and then devise your own strategy from that?
Now, Ryan, as you know, in the watch list, I've actually went ahead and created a whole watch list called retailers. So you can actually input the retailers right into your into both newsfeed and in the signals. So you'll be able to see them and follow them as I follow them as well.
Awesome.
One of the interesting things that I heard was the Target CEO said that apparel was really the bright spot. And I was like, wow, that's very interesting to know. So I would also say in a subsector, look at apparel. I know that there's a lot of kids out there, and I just watched Jeff Goldblum's video on Netflix about sneakers. I had no idea that the sneakers world was so big as it was. So a Foot Locker out there, those companies out there, Adidas, Nike, those companies out there are very on my radar.
Absolutely. And, one of the other things that I've noticed in my own experience is that the shoe companies seem to get more publicity, more hype during the basketball season. As many of those basketball athletes actually have their own shoe line and things of that nature, I feel like I see more commercials. I hear more people talking about it. Basketball season pretty much just started. We're in the full swing of things. And now we have, the holiday season coming up here. So real great tips, Steve. That is something actually that I'm going to watch. I normally don't watch retailers, but when in Rome, might as well give that a shot here. So thank you for that. So what are we doing next? Are we going to talk about other new things? Are we going to talk about fishing? What's going on, Steve?
So obviously, I have been talking about the biotech sector for a long time. That I said one thing that was going to happen, it was going to be hot. That the FDA was going to be on a mission to approve drugs, and they have. We've already talked about how to put that watch list, the biotech calendar, as well as the biotech one into your system. You don't just have to install them just for newsfeed. You can install them in almost everything as a filter. So if you want to just see news coming down for the biotechs, you can do that as well. But biotech sector will stay hot. Now, Ryan, you did also notice back in the summertime when on pre-market prep as well as here, I talked about one sector that I thought was going to explode, and it did, and that was the movement of goods and services. We talked about the rails, and I said the domestic rails were going to do very well, CSX being one of them, and it exploded. The other one that I'm telling you now that I think that movement is probably over as well. I'm also telling you that, as I said, that the industrial world was going to be a big pick. MLM was a big one for me,
right.
Marietta, and we killed it there, right? And I'm also telling you that that's probably going to be over now. We're swinging now into election season. We'll start to see some of those plays as both Democrats and Republicans are fighting it out. So we'll see which sector is probably more popular there when that starts to happen. We will know there. Now, the one thing that I did do, Ryan, I did say that the top was in. And so far, we are starting to see that, right? We're starting to see a little bit of the curvature on the SPY. We talked about that in one of the last webinars and YouTube as well. Go see us on YouTube, right? I will also say that Ray Dalio, who we all know, the big investor, also laid down $1 billion bet against the market. So those guys don't normally do that unless they also see the same things that I've been seeing of the market, maybe putting a top in. So I am telling you, you may want to use your options to be a hedge against your portfolio as well.